Eric Anielli. Today, to keep things short and simple, let's just assume Aaron's car. I undercoated a car yesterday, so today I feel like I deserve some time to play with the scope. But so let's presume Aaron's car was in limp mode, the Charger, and we already smoke tested it. There's no trouble codes, and we're deciding we want to go after the accelerator pedal position sensor. There's two potentiometers on each one, on that and the throttle position sensor. So we have no codes to go by. We're looking for something possibly breaking up. What I'm going to do is I got the wiring diagrams for the APP sensor. I'm going to put two back probes in that. Then I'm going to run two channels to Hscope. Okay, guys, I'm not saying this is what the first thing you'd want to do, diagnose the limp mode in a Dodge, but if you work on a lot of Dodges, you're going to get them. You're going to be testing these pedals. But what I did here is looked up the pinout, and the yellow one it's actually the APP sensor signal 2. They're both signal wires, but it's the first one you come across on the pinout. It's actually in pin 2. And then the green one, that's the APP1 sensor signal. And then I have both grounds go into the chassis ground stacked. Right, here's how I have the cart set up. I have channel 1 on, channel 1 and channel 2, both actually on an 8.2 volt scale. Now, features as I go, I like to explain, like if you wanted to change the name of the channel, you can to whatever you have on it. But I just leave a channel 1 and channel 2 because I have the yellow pins in there so we know. I actually have this on the second to the slowest sample rate. Now, if you were looking at this pedal, you're going to be looking for dropouts. You're going to want a higher sample rate, but that's in automotive module rather. This is just oscilloscope mode. This is where I like to get my signal from, and then I'll go to auto mode. I know I'm going to get better resolution, but in oscilloscope, the shorter your sampling rate, the longer time you get. So that's what I like to do, just to make sure I'm getting a signal. Okay, guys, I'm in the passenger seat. I'll zoom you in a little bit here. I'll put it on the screen recorder later when we get to all 4 of them. But I'm going to just turn the key on. Now I'm going to just depress the pedal. So we see a signal. Now that's all I'm looking for right now. I'm not analyzing anything, or just are they both reading. Now I know in automotive mode they will read. Opened up the automotive module just to take a closer look, and I bumped the rate up from very low to, I like 150 inline. And if you're going to see a dropout, we're going to see it in this range. And here, old Pete Mayer from Motor Age, it's 2020 rule. Here's to you, Pete. Keep your time base. Still got the same scale, so I'm going to just give it some time. It got 6 minutes. I'm going to just start it, pretend like we're still trying to find why this thing's in limp mode. Easy on them out first. Now we're going to just start you, give you some time. Do it like a snap-on, zoom way in. I'm just moving my foot back and forth, then just hit it real fast like you're doing snap throttles. And then move it real slow throughout the whole range. Depress it down. And then let it come up real slow. We can only see on the bottom buffer. I could see it from even in a driver's seat that we are getting a signal. That's the main thing right now that you're looking for. If you can't see it on the screen, that doesn't matter. Sometimes it plays it and it keeps going live. Sometimes it stops, but as long as you see that moving in the buffer in the bottom, you got your signal. So now I'll just stop it. Now you could just pinch the zoom to manipulate your time. You could do whatever you want, but you could see the events down here that we want to go to, then just zoom out. The eyeball will get you to a lot of places too up here. Sometimes I'll just hit them. I'll hit them all to see how it lays it out. But this is what we wanted to see right there. Now, if we seen any dropouts in that pedal going through anywhere, especially when you're holding it flat like that, sometimes you'll see lines dropping out. Now, see, this is what's interesting. This is a 2007. Joe's is 2013, the Chrysler 200. On his, there was, I can't remember exactly what it is. I did make a video on it. I'm going to have to go back and look. There was some kind of weird dropout on the first sensor, which would be the green. There was a weird dropout, and I even, did some research on it, and a lot of people says theirs were like that. Now, this is a couple year difference, but this definitely isn't what Joe's look like with the dropout. But that's what you'd want to see on there. So if we were looking for why this car is in limp mode, and we see this and we can't find no dropouts, then next we're going to go to the throttle position sensor, and it's going to look somewhat like this also. But whenever you do all four at once, if something's not lining up, or you could check your spec and see what the whole range of this was. It's at 4.18 volts. You could even drop another one that'll tell you the difference. .18. So, but we know this one, the green one, this is actually the APP1 sensor, even though this is channel 2. So we know its range would be 4.18. So if you compare that to spec, and it's supposed to be 5 volt, whenever it's floored, well, that could be part of your problem. Same with the yellow one. You could just drop the cursor down to the yellow one, check its range. 2.09. So this is how they keep together. And if it realizes that there's a difference between these two, it puts it in the limp mode. So that would look pretty good. Well, naturally, it is a known good. So we're going to move on like we're still looking for the limp mode, like this won't come out of limp mode, and we're trying and we're down to this. And this is the way I would be approaching it with the 2-channel Hscope. I'd go for the pedal first, and then I'd go for the throttle position sensor second. Okay, this is part that I'm doing for myself, like just how to use my diagnostic cart and how things are going to work out if I was hypothetically chasing a problem. And that would be the first 2 channels I'd use. Not saying that, the APP would be the first sensor in this, but just say, we had an inkling to go that way. Right now, I'm just looking for a signal, and I'm looking to see how convenient I'm going to be with my cart and a car in the garage like that. Now, that one's going under the dash to the pedal, and it's coming out around here. So what I'm going to do is just disconnect these 2 leads. I'm going to use 2 new leads and go for the accelerator pedal over there. I could push my cart out of the way, acquire the signal, and then manipulate it to where I could get all 4 channels on the VATO in the central location. So I'm just going through the ropes on how I'm going to set up. But if you guys are interested in any of these scopes, that's why I make these, because when I was looking for scopes, I mean, even being on Danner Premium for it was 3 years before I even heard of Hscope, so I wanted to see as much as I could see of any scope I was looking to spend money on, and if it would do what I wanted it to do. So I make these videos. So if you guys want to purchase this scope, if you like the software, one of them, I mean, you know, I encourage you to, because there's not enough out there on Hscope or on these MicSigs actually. I mean, but the Hscope, they're not on eBay and they're not on Amazon. That's why they're a little bit less known. Martin Lauren, go to his website and, you know, give these things a look. Guys, I got these off Russian All Data. If you do, leave Ivan a tip every now and again. I mean, it's a free, great site to get schematics, you know, but you got to watch the ads. But I always support them, you know, because I use it so much. So this is what we already did. The accelerator pedal, that's where I got already pinned out. The next one's the throttle position sensor. That would be this. It gives you the pin out from, tells you which pin is which side you're going to start from. And then it tells you what they do, the description. Throttle position sensor 1, we're going to want this pin. So we're going to want the first pin that's telling you it's brown and orange. And then we're going to want TP signal 2. TP signal 2, that's going to be on number 4. So we're going to want number 1, TP signal 1, number 4, TP signal 2. And that's a brown and dark green. All right, let me get the pins in that, and then I'm going to hook that up to Hscope, run that on 2 channels. Okay, guys, I'm in the car. This pedal, the throttle position sensor, it won't have a signal until it's running. I could see I'm still on oscilloscope. I'm just looking for the signal. This is what I can see from back here. So now I'm getting the signal and I'm going to shut it off. Then I'll move on to automotive mode and see the signal on a longer time base. Okay guys, looking back at the waveform, we could see almost the same thing that's going on with the APP sensor. This one, whenever one increases, one decreases. So it's following along with there. And now the waveform's a little bit fuzzy. I mean, there's a lot of these artifacts. These aren't, you know, anything to be concerned about. What you're looking for is big dropouts, uneven dropouts. But what we could do to get rid of them is turn on low pass filter. 33 hertz is really good for this. Gives you a nice fine line. Then we're going to do the same thing with that, with channel 2. Now we can see with a lot more detail, looking for any dropouts. You could find your revs quite easy down here, your snap, or your, yeah, basically little snaps. I really wasn't flooring it, but I mean, if there's going to be any dropouts, you could just move along at the bottom. You could even flick the screen and it moves. I mean, it's a... Oh, there's a fire whistle going off. What's nice about, if you're comparing two, like as one increases and one decreases, and we can see these are the same signal, you could also turn the math channel on. What's on channel 1 there, we're going to go for channel 1 plus channel 2. And then we could see almost straight line rendition. So that might come in helpful if there was a lot of dropouts you were seeing. It would tell you which one was overpowering the other one. But this is pretty much rev, and I'm not sure that would be much use, but it does give us a center line of the difference between the two. But now we're going to just pretend like, I mean, you could see this scope did an excellent job on that. Getting the signal for the throttle position sensor was no problem. Came across quite easy. I have a little bit of noise in here, but I believe that's, you know, it's coming across both channels, so it's probably just, you know, noise coming in through the car. No need for it to be that big, but the scope did a good job, got a good waveform. Now we're going to pretend that factory service or, our inklings told us to go towards 4 channels at once and seeing if there's a difference between these and the APP sensor. So I didn't mean before what I meant that we're getting these little waves here, like these little bumps. That's because the car's running. Before it wasn't running, and whenever we were getting a nice clean signal off the APP sensor, these little artifacts, that's just because it's running the way it's going, getting a wave like that. A little bit of voltage come from the alternator. That's what's causing that, and the electrical interference in the system. But running it, you don't get quite as good of a waveform as you do whenever you're something you could check without the engine running, like that APP sensor. Okay guys, I'm just using the same setup. The leads are in the same place that they were whenever we were using Hscope. Got them coming through the door, and that's part of this. This is great practice hooking up the scope. Not only that, but using this tool cart. It's a big difference between using this and the toolbox, and I'm still getting used to how I like it and how I like it set up. Now for 4 channels, that works pretty good there, being 2 of them are in passenger area and 2 of them are under the hood. Still got all 4 on, still on the cart. Now I'm going to switch over to the screen recorder so you could see. At first I'm going to just get a signal, and then I'm going to increase the time. MicSig, you do have to put the low pass filter on before you record if you want a low pass filter, and it's easy to do on this. You just go to the channel menu and just click what channels you want. Click low pass, click your channel low pass, click your channel low pass. I've it already set up on all 4 of these. I got 5 seconds per division on this screen. That will give you enough time to rev the throttle a little bit, hold it up maybe at 2 grand. And also while I'm here, I'm going to move that sample rate up. Well, at 4 channels, 1 million's all we're getting each channel, but that's plenty. But I'm going to start the single capture. It's going to just keep running till the end of the screen, till it can't capture no more. Then it'll automatically stop. So that way you can't really miss anything. It's pretty cool. You just got to make sure you put enough time on it to get what you want. Which with this scope, that's not a problem. I captured the whole screen on 5 seconds per division. So that should have been, I believe there's 10 divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, I always check because I seen there was a couple, like I believe the Hscope got 7 or 8. It got an odd number. One of the scopes does at any rate. But now we got this. Now, if you want to ever reload this again and put any measurements on, do it now, because you can't reload this back into the MicSig software. So if you want to take a screenshot, take a screenshot now, put your measurements on, whatever you intend to do to save it. With Hscope, we had a little bit different saving process. But this looks, pretty neat. You'd be looking for the dropouts in this color. You could either stretch it out here, and we could see on the side, the blue trace is the accelerator position pedal 1. The yellow trace is the APP 2. The purple trace is the throttle position sensor 1. And the green trace is the throttle position sensor 2. This one got up to 500 millivolt scale. I don't know how, but we only get him back down, keep everybody on 1 volt. That's on doing 1 volt per division.
And it looks pretty. I mean, if you had a dropout in one of these that was causing limp motor, you had a very big problem, you could even put it on a longer time base. And what's nice is even if you keep it shorter, if you want to see where you are in it, the zoom feature is pretty good. You're seeing your whole screen down here from one end to the other is this little window up here. You move that window, you change your screen, you see something that catches your eye. Like if you found something in here you wanted to take a closer look at, you could still zoom in more from down here. You could still move the other channel down if you wanted to. You could get measurements. I mean, you could do everything from down the zoom menu, which is pretty cool. Let you move around quicker because look how far we're zoomed in now. And this little sliver is what we're seeing. And that low pass got rid of a lot, but these are just the artifacts from an engine running. I mean, you almost see these on all the DC signals once the engine's running. If you're back probing them key on, engine off, they always look a lot different once you start getting some voltage going through that system. Got an AC generator you bolted to the engine, so you do pick up a little noise running. It was nice to see the APP sensors. You didn't have to have the engine running, but for the throttle position, you have to have it running for it to move. And even on a waveform that long, the zoom's quick. You can move around, find that hump, find that hump. It's very fast. Anything you see on the waveform up top, you can get to super fast. Right, that looks pretty decent. I mean, that's what I set out to do. It's a common thing for Chryslers to go into limp mode, and it's, in honesty, it's like 50-50 with the throttle position sensor, with the throttle body is what you replace. But between the throttle body and APP sensor pedal, I mean, it's a whole assembly. Both sensors are in the pedal, so it comes as a unit. But you want to make sure if you're getting one of these codes, you want to make sure you're getting the right thing, because the computer's looking at the communication between these two sensors. So you have 4 lines of safety basically. If one of these signals wasn't right, you've seen a lot of dropouts in it, or if it wasn't reading the right voltage, you're gonna it's going to cause limp mode when the computer goes to compare them all to each other. Okay guys, before I close this, I won't get it back into the MicSig software, because this will save as a WAV file, which your Android's going to see as a music file. And then I haven't found a program to load it into yet, make any adjustments or any manipulations. But being as I showed the math channel on Hscope, I want to show you the math channel real quick at this. Nope, Aaron texted for something, but the math channel, you just move this, you put the cursor here and just slide up. Then you can put the math channel on. And the math channel right now is channel 1 plus channel 2. So when we look at the math channel, you could actually go to the math channel, go to the quick menu, and get the all. That means all the measurements it could make it made. It's telling you it's, the min, the max, frequencies. It's telling you a lot of information, but if you were looking for any differences in between these two, we're not getting a coder, so these are normal the way this is following. It's just subtracting the difference, or adding the two channels together, because we see these ones follow this way. They both go down under voltage. Or on the decel, they go up whenever you accelerate. They both go up, but they go up different voltages. the difference between them is the math channel line. It's adding these two together and giving you a straight line. And together, around 3.5 volts right there. But as you move it, it's on your crosshair. So, I mean, is this 100% useful for diagnosing these? I don't know. I'm just showing you basically, I mean, if something was wrong, I mean, now I know what one looks like good. It's good that I put the math channel on, because if I see a difference in this whenever I find a bad one, that's easy. But right now, I just want to show you guys how it works, like, because I did show you on Hscope. And if you wanted to go, being we have 4 channels on, we could get the difference between any that we wanted. Now, if we wanted to go to the throttle position sensor, we could go channel 3 plus channel 4. And we see that makes a straight line. There's no difference between the two. So that's good. Is that something that, you know, right here it's saying, like, you know, with nothing on, this would be with no foot on the pedal at all. It's saying our voltage is 4.97. So, and the max it hit was 5. Oh, I switched it to the green channel. All you do is click on them to switch to the channel if you want its measurements. So at whatever time you could see its voltage changing down here. So it's a pretty neat. You could do, you know, whatever you needed to do. The math channel's pretty easy to use, and just the way that you could even take channel 1 plus channel 4. See, this would be something if you're used to seeing a straight line and you start seeing these dips. But I'm not too sure about the math channel line, how healthy it would be, or what it's like to. But all right, guys, I just figured I'd just put that in there so you could see what the math channel looks like a little bit. Because they do come in handy sometimes. And the same thing is whenever you're done with anything on this, you flick to the right, and then the math channel's gone. Here's the probes I use, guys. It was every one of these. I used these electronic specialties, these mini back probes. I mean, it was such a smooth. They're a little bit smaller than these standard back probes, but I mean, every one of them made connection. Every one of them slid in there like first slide connection. I mean, just follow the wire down with them. But don't be getting in there with no junk. I mean, T-pins are all right, but these are even thinner than T-pins. You know, I'll leave a link for them in the description, but the more I use these, the more I like them. And this, I used all four of them. You know, you don't want to get in there with junk and start probing around, ruining connectors. This was, you know, very easy to get in there. And they do come with the wire piercing cover, so if you ever need to use, you know, pinch a wire, there you go. Okay, guys, that took a little bit less time than I thought it did to actually set up, but it answered a couple of my questions on how to set up, how to run 4 channels, and just to see if I could get a signal on them too, because that's, you know, those are common on Chryslers. You know, want to start seeing them on, you know, my own equipment, and you know what it's going to look like. I mean, the math channel's kind of a, you know, I'm not sure how good that would be on there, but we could see if something was off next time you compare it to it. But the more known good you see, the more something odd's going to look to you. But being as I had that, you know, that it took a lot less time than I thought, I also wanted to see what this looked like, you know, with a pulse sensor in oil dipstick. And there's a lot of how you time them. I'm going to just use a secondary to pick up the secondary waveform, time the pulse sensor, see if we could tell which pulse is caused by the spark event.
Now, the easy coil to get to, that's number 2. So you just have to keep in mind that you're not on number 1. So you're going to want to go to the next one after your firing order if you're, counting down. If I'm going to set that up real quick, I mean, that all together was like 45 minutes setting all that up, even recording. I mean, with the back probes getting in there and having everything I needed here, I didn't have to look for anything. So, the cart's coming in good for that. Hell, let's do another test. I figure the exhaust, I've done quite a few 4-cylinders. I'm going to do the 6-cylinder. I just got the extension going over to the cart. That's just a Rotkee pulse sensor. And I just made that end for rubber. That put a heavier end on it so it kind of holds it in the tailpipe. And it also gets like a bigger scoop of the exhaust. See, just like that. Pretty stable. I mean, it's just better than letting it dangle way down. It wiggles a little bit more, so that gets a pretty good signal right there. All right, guys, I did a quick recalibration. I moved closer to the heat source. The day warmed up a little bit. I know it's over 10 degrees warmer than whenever I first started, so recalibrated. I got the pulse sensor in. I got primary ignition probe with a 20-to-1 attenuator on. Using them mini probes again, man. I mean, them things, really liking them. But I'm going to switch to the screen recorder and start it up and see what we get on the screen.
Around it here. I'm going to just hit run first. There's our signal. Saying the peak, I would be counting the top, 582 volts. That's counting from the bottom where it pulls it way down to the top. Oh, we almost have, we have one firing event here and one on the end. Actually, it shows you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's all the pulses. Now this is number 2. That's what I have the primary ignition marked under. That's number 2 cylinder. The firing order for this car is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not sure in the exhaust. I believe on a 6-cylinder, it's 2 over. I'm going to have to look that up again, but which pulse makes what? This firing event would not have made this pulse. It could be this pulse right here that it made, or this pulse. But I just want to make sure before I say anything, like, because I know there is a formula. I can't remember it right now because I've been doing the 4-cylinders more with this. That's why I wanted to give it a shot. I mean, you can see just by looking at this guy here. Well, I'm going to say he never seems to achieve the height. So is it this cylinder making a bigger pulse? We're going to assume the positive pulse is the puff. If it's getting hit on the positive side here. And I'm just watching the tops. Very well could be the bottoms, but because they do look a little bit different than the tops, but these things aren't directional and they're not measuring anything. If you blow into them, you get a positive reading. So we're just taking that as a sign that the first pulses are on the top. But if you had a cylinder that really wasn't contributing, or an exhaust valve that wasn't opening, this is going to find it, as quick as hooking that up was. I mean, it was nothing to hook up. And you're getting a good view of if you've got a bad exhaust valve. I mean, right off the beginning, if the cylinder's not contributing right off the beginning. But you do have to know this formula for this. I'm going to add that before. As a matter of fact, like I say, with this MicSig software, if you want this, you have to take a screenshot. I hope I took while I was screen recording. It's using both of the features at once. All right, I'll shrink this down a little bit. I'm going to give it a little bit of gas. I want to see if we can see them pulses. They should increase, and sometimes this sensor, I know it'll go off the screen. It's very reactive, so I'm not even sure that's low enough. This might get, it might blow the signal up too high. Well, that looked pretty cool from over there. Now that I'm happy with the sizes of that, being this is a MicSig, we want to put as much time as we can on there. Well, not as we can, because I'd be revving it for a very long time. 5 seconds of division, that should be plenty. Run it, start it again. There we go. Hopefully this is picking up, because I'd like to see you guys hear that and see that on like a screen recording, like either on your own scope or on your own tab. See what it looks like under the V-cell. I might actually run a pulse sensor out of the belt light. We're going to stop that. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Well, we're gonna have to find a way to clamp them on there a little bit without pinching the tube. All right, that's a quick remedy. I got the vice grips just on that metal band clamp. Just see if that holds it on there. Hey guys, I restarted it. This is, I just wanted to see if you could, doing this simple test, you'd be checking for the exhaust. You'd be seeing how hard each cylinder's contributing real fast. And you'd also be, are you able to check your ignition at the same time? If you zoom out, you lose the pulse, but you can see you do get a primary waveform that you can work with. I mean, that's pretty cool. You could just, you're just basically double checking your ignition. You could drop cursors and measure your burn time right here from this end to that end. You could do a lot of things. So just simply taking a pulse sensor test, because usually, I mean, if I have them out, usually it was like any exhaust, then the intake, then the crankcase, or any of that order. But I mean, they're quick to move around. And the pulses mean a lot. There's a lot of getting into pulse sensor diagnostics. I mean, there's a ton to watch out there on YouTube. But you know, as long as you get this image, you can analyze your own. You can follow along. Anybody, especially some of the lectures out there, I mean, the seminars, you can follow along yourself and actually see on your own how they got that waveform. Even if you're checking them good, I mean, you could take your own waveform and analyze it, because these waveforms, they look different on every scope. You know, you're always better off checking on your own. That's why it was so important to me for me to do this today. And that burn line's filling up way more in the whole screen if you want to get in on the oscillations. I mean, these are just the oscillations, guys. and there's still room to go. Yeah. You get a very good view of, you know, your whole waveform. It's really cool. Yeah, I really like that. It kind of looks like a hand tech at first whenever you look at it, but I mean, you could see the definition in this. I mean, it's. I'm not sure zoom will do any good that close, anyways. But if you move this along there, you get even closer, and you can look along the burn line. The line seems to get thinner on the zoom, so that's what's kind of nice. You can analyze this a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a thin line. Whenever you go back to the regular, the line's a little bit thicker. And then for the pulse sensor, but if you plan on analyzing the ignition, you want to zoom out as far as you can to get the pulses with it, but you still want to have some detail there. Just depends on how you want to see your waveform. You could stop it if you wanted to identify the cylinders. Like I was saying, this is number 2. See, stuff like this, if you saw it constantly on the cylinder, I mean, it coming out of the exhaust, it does look a little. See how it's on the endo here. Doesn't seem very repetitive, because this is its lowest peak right before number 2 fired, and then this would be that same peak. That the pulses are at the beginning here, so it's, I'd say that's something going on in the engine, either utilizing some of the, well, I was going to say intake vacuum, but we're in the exhaust, so it's not a misfire and it has no code, so it's hard to say. I wouldn't expect there to be a difference. And RPM changes could cause it from the IAC, but I mean valves sealing sometimes and not sealing sometimes, they could also cause that. But we're not, don't believe any of that's going on right now, because like I said, no codes in the car, runs good, it's a daily driver, but something in the engine is changing. I'm going to give her a little gas again and just see what happens. Two seconds. I'll put 10 on it. But I'll just drag it in and still pulsing like that up until the acceleration. Under the acceleration, we have some see, we underscaled on the bottom. We shot over it. Got the peaks until it capped off. But even without the peaks, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these little peaks aren't. I was going to say, if even under acceleration, these were different peaks, but you see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These little peaks we don't see at idle, but they started coming up whenever we accelerated a bit. See how at idle we only have the bottoms? We have one peak for each cylinder. But whenever we get under the acceleration, this thing's getting hit too many times to really not be responding from one cylinder, putting the pulse on it to get set again at its like 0. Even though it's technically, you know, we're not measuring the voltage. Just when I seen that from afar on that rev, I just want to take a closer look. That's what days like this are about. See the lower peaks. These aren't there, and what I'm assuming it's just reacting before it could even register the regular cylinder peaks. If we bring this down, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. So we're back here. These are all irrelevant. These aren't the cylinder making the puff. Alright guys, I'm going to shut that off. I'm glad I put it in there just to take a look at it. I want to get used to using this equipment. And like I said, this is a 6-cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look it up again and put down the rule for which ignition event causes which pulse that is. That's what I wanted to get to the bottom of in this ignition test with the pulse sensor. So I'd say that's a success. I'm going to wrap it up, look that up, and then I'll include that in there with the video.
All right, guys, I hope you found something about this video enjoyable. I know this is the time I tell you everything I learned, you know, and I did learn a bunch of things, even on something as simple as that. The accelerator pedal and the throttle position sensor. I mean, they're easy to get to on this car. If you got a car in, I mean, don't have in your mind that you're going to go after like a cam sensor and then still go after it, even if it's a bear to get to, just to do a cam sensor. Look what's in front of you. I mean, there's only one coil exposed on this. Fine, you know, it's number 2. That's what we're using for a sync. I mean, it's the more you do even known goods, the better you're going to be. There's no waste of time. You need to run down your equipment. You need to make sure you have everything in good repair before you start, because I mean, you don't want to smoke your scope. You don't want to break accessories. You know, keep everything, you know, nothing as Danner would say janky. You know, that's an area word that, you know, I laugh every time he says it. But okay, the MicSig, I love this thing. But you see the difference between Hscope, which I love at 512. I mean, you see it's the Hscope is more dynamic, like the pinch to zoom, get your scales just with moving your fingers. And then you're easily on your way. And it's, you know, it's like a more customizable experience. It's like, and there's a lot of software on it. A lot of it I haven't even, you know, gotten to use a lot. The math channels on both of these, I mean, there's plenty there. But I like them both. I like the detail of the MicSig. I like how much time you could record on that and how much you could zoom in. I like it. It's fast to move. The more I use it, the quicker I'm getting around this screen. At first, it seems like clunky because everything does. I mean, if I got a Pico right now, I'd be fumbling. No, and I mean, that's just how it goes. There's a learning curve, and you're better off on a known good, seeing if you could, get an image like you expected to get. But the things I learned with that pulse sensor, I'm not sure how good that is under, a rev or higher RPM. We were getting that artifact in there. I don't think it is this. I mean, I made this pretty decent, this rubber hose. There's a metal fitting in there. So, and it's belled for a compression joint. So it actually has a bell to it, like a little bell, and then this is clamped around it. So there's not like a hose running through a hose where you could be getting some resonance from a hose sticking into another hose. You know what I mean? If this hose just continued into this hose and dangled there, I mean, yeah, you could expect something going on there. But I made this just like a sound amplifier. But under high RPM, that second pulse starts coming in there, and all the pulses start looking different. So even if I know what cylinder's what, one time this one's doing the same thing that one's doing now. So, and you're looking at a known good, and it still looks wonky. So, well, at idle, I mean, that's where you're going to find, if you got a bad lifter or a plug cat, this might come in great for checking your exhaust. I mean, if you have a plug cat, you're going to be seeing some really weird pulses. They're not going to be even just whatever air is getting past it, you're going to be seeing in various puffs. But at idle, if you have a broken rocker arm, the exhaust rocker arm, something like that, a valve not seating right, you're probably going to see that in there at idle. You're not going to need that high RPM. So I just proved to myself that this probably isn't a high RPM sensor. It does good in the intake. It does good in the crankcase. Darren on Mechanic Mindset, he used it in the coolant, but I've seen him track it down. He was getting one more pulse than he had cylinders. So it drove him through the loop. When you find something like that, you follow it till you get the end. I mean, you got to. You can't just let the questions bother you. You have the tools now. I mean, what more do you need if you got a scope to track down something you had a question about? So, I'm not sure if I'd use them in there. If you had a car, his car was a known good also. So, but if you had a car that had a blown head gasket, I'm sure you're going to see a bigger pulse in the intake. But sometimes you hook it up just to look for something even. We seen 6 pulses there. What if we would have seen 7? That's what happened to him. Then he had to figure out why he had 1 extra pulse. But luckily, we didn't have that problem. But, I wouldn't do that as a standard test. But if you had something that you suspected had a head gasket leak, I mean, it's worth trying. I mean, that's one way to further guide you in that direction that, now you're going to be looking at that head. Maybe pressure test the cylinder and everything, do leak down tests, do compression tests, do anything like that, but it's going to give you some kind of direction. The other things I found, these back probes, I love these things. I used all 4 of them at once today. Since I've used these, the last time I had Aaron's charger, and I mean, that's probably 10 probes. I haven't even missed. Every one's been on. Let me show you the diameter. This is a regular back probe. And these are the mini, the electronic specialties. These just slide in so much easier. I mean, you can't tell. I mean, I can't tell you and describe the difference between sliding something that's just, like half the size in there, but you don't fight nothing, and you feel this touch metal whenever you push it in. I was worried in the beginning that this wasn't going to be long enough. But it's plenty long. It got the primary ignition on the coil, and it got all 4 of them, the APP sensor and the throttle position sensor. It got every one of them first shot. They stayed put. I like them. I'm going to get some more. Every one of them does come with a wire piercing cap. They work pretty decent. Now I got 4 wire piercing caps for them. I'd buy them without the cap, but one way or the other, I'm going to get some more. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you learned something on this, and anything else you want to see in the future, just drop me a comment. I enjoy coming out here and, just using the scope on, even if it's a known good. I love finding something that needs a scope, but even if it's a known good, it's at practice, man. There's never a wasted day. Also, guys, I was a couple of you asked about CAN bus on with both of these scopes. I do have the digital license for Hscope, and the VATO does do CAN bus. Unfortunately, this charger didn't have CAN bus, but tomorrow, Boomah, the Juke's coming back. Somebody she took it to Advance or AutoZone, and they installed a headlight. Now the pigtail's bad, so you have to jiggle it to get the thing to work. So I got a pigtail ordered for it. It came in. I know that has CAN bus. That's a 2016. So yeah, I'm going to try them both out tomorrow. Make a short one, let you guys see them. Yeah, I do have this cheap breakout box that I'm going to be using. I'm sure you guys have seen these on Amazon, eBay. If you haven't gotten one and you're thinking about it, I can't tell you yet because I've never used this. Tomorrow will be the first time I'm going to try, putting the scanner on one end, plugging it in, and seeing if we get CAN high and CAN low. All right, guys, have a good one. All right, guys, Erin needs her car back this morning, but as I was watching the video from yesterday, I actually, I told you I was going to include which cylinder, how many cylinders we're looking back when we have a pulse sensor in the exhaust and we're synced with one of the ignitions. So now this is still number 2 coil. It's the easiest one to get to. So we're going to have to do some figuring with the identifiers. But what I'm going to do is pull the fuel injector and hopefully the coil keeps firing and we're going to see which pulse we do lose. I was watching Kentucky Home Garage. That's where I first heard about, the cylinders, like the identifier, and oddly it was the same engine. It was a 2.7, only it was transverse mount that he used it on, and he was the one that I seen it's 2 back. 2 cylinders from what we're syncing on is the pulse we're seeing in the exhaust. Instead of just adding that, I'm going to just run the test real quick, and I'm going to disconnect the injector, and we're going to see if we have the same results, because it's not that you don't trust what you've seen on another video. You want to run this test yourself and you want to see it on your own equipment. Because if you're using a different scope, you want to be able to know your scope, and you're going to want to be able to put the cylinder identifiers on it. You're going to want to know which cylinder it is misfiring. So let me get that set up real quick and run. And also, I did want to clarify one thing. I had a couple questions about when the Hscope was getting knocked offline. Like, this is going to be secondary. Again, I'm using the secondary waveform to sync the coil, and then I'm going to unplug the injector. But I don't get knocked off at all on secondary. I don't get knocked offline off Hscope at all on primary. The only time I get knocked off is if I'm doing like a pressure transducer, if I have the coil still firing into a spark plug. And you can't move that spark tester, not a spark plug, just a spark in the air. I use a spark tester. But you can only get it so far away from the coil because you're back probed into the same coil. You can't stretch the coil. But what I was thinking possibly for next time, whenever I do that, try it on Hscope. And instead of just putting the spark tester right into the end of the coil, put like a 3-foot spark plug wire into the coil, run the spark tester like on the other side of the engine, see if we could kind of get it away. But one time I got knocked off even getting close to, I didn't have the primary back probed yet, and just getting the back probe close to the coil knocked it off. So next time I'm going to try that. I'm glad somebody mentioned that in the comment, because that's what gave me the idea. Why not just put a plug on it and run the spark tester as far away as you can from your tablet? Everything, your tablet, your leads, your scope, just run the plug far away. Might work, might not, but we're going to find out next time. But all right, guys, let me get this started up. Okay, guys, I want to show you, even in a hurry, have the secondary on. Quickly ran the pulse sensor in the back, and this is where Hscope you're not going to beat this for speed. The Hscope was fast, but Hscope takes it to another level. This is yesterday's settings. Now I'm going to just keep it on this. This is where I like getting my waveform. And I'm going to just go around and start the car. That's opening Hscope. It was not open before
I came out before we just did that. That fast with Hscope. We're getting the pulse sensor and we're getting the secondary ignition. I mean, you get a beautiful waveform. Gonna go over to automotive mode. Gonna go with Pete's 20. Gotta call out something else like the motor age rule or Pete's rule. I mean, it's I don't know why he's the one that made it stick in my head from watching him. Then we're gonna just let it go. Now I'm gonna disconnect one coil, or one fuel injector rather, while this is running. All right, now we can take a look back. And even if Farron called me and told me she needed the car right now, I have what I need just to be able to show you instead of, you know, putting somebody else's spec on there. Back in on the waveform. I switched it over to the recorder, make it a little bit easier to see. We could see down here. It's pretty easy to find where that misfire is. We could see in the green down there. So we'll go a little bit before it. And where do we see it? The car was still warming up. I wouldn't worry about anything different in there. Whenever we have one not firing, that pulse should be way different. Something like this. I could actually use that little ring from Martin Moore, it's actually, it'll put a mark on it, and it's either volume up or volume down. If you have Bluetooth headphones, you could put a flag right where you do something or see something, and it'll leave a flag in here, which is pretty cool while it's running. Like, you could even have Bluetooth headphones on and hit it, and it'll leave a flag right there. I mean, you don't have to have the ring. The ring's pretty neat. It's just, you know, something to click whenever something happens. But yeah, you could do it with other Bluetooth devices either. Or also, and here, while we're still far out, we could still see 6 humps. We're not that far out. We're just coming up to where that misfire is. And I did not find these on the MicSig software, so it's pretty cool. Hscope has these. They do have the degree rulers on the MicSig, however, I mean, which you can figure out your degrees who's firing. But here, we know that's number 2. This right here. And I'm lining this up with this, and that's where number 2 fires. So these are the pulses we're looking for. We're trying to see which one, when this one doesn't fire, which pulse gets affected. It's not going to be this one. So as we keep going down, we're going to look for the first. Okay, here's the first time something isn't even. So this would be just when I unplug the injector. Now look, we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 peaks. So the next one over, now you could straighten out if you ever move along, and you could see how number 2 isn't in line anymore. If you just tap the cylinder identifiers again, the little triangle that lets you move them comes back, which is great. Also moved a little bit further, and I wanted, here's the one, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure I'm right where I want. This mouse, it makes it slide a little bit more, but now you see the triangles are here. I could go back and put this right on number 2, and then move this one on the number 2. Okay, so now we could see we have, this would be number 2, 3, and then it goes down. So we're going over. This should have been a tip somewhere in here, but instead it's going down. So we see 2 overs affected. It's not coming back up right here. So we have 2 normal peaks. So it's correct on the Kentucky Home Garage, what he did on a V6, it was 2 over. So if you know this and you get more into using pulse sensors, you're not even going to be looking for what happens after, because look what happens after whenever the engine tries to make up for a misfire. Now can we go 2 over? Not really, because even the next one after the spark looks like it was affected. That's the engine trying to compensate for a misfire. But you want to go to the first one. That's when you're going to get the best what caused this. These are all normal. Right here's where I unplugged the injector. The first time it didn't have no fuel, we had 2 perfect humps. So you go over 2, the third one. So if you see this, you know to go back to. That's the cylinder you're looking for. That's the one that's misfiring. Now that's on the V6. I know on a 4-cylinder, there would be 1 less hump. So I imagine on a V8, there would be 3 humps and then would see this next door. I'm not certain, but I know the 4 and the 6, I've never used it on a V8 like that. But, you know, if it goes up from 4 to 6 and then 8, so we're going to just assume that's 3. But for right now, we proved it's 2. And that's what I encourage you to do. If you see anything on a video, before you take it as gold, and see what it looks like on your equipment, because you're not going to want to try to reproduce what you saw on the Hscope, you know, in the moment on your scope. You're going to want something you're familiar with, and you want to know what that is. All right, guys. I just felt like I had to put that in there instead of just putting an explanation of what cylinder it is. And I hope I explained it, you know, good enough for you to follow along. All right, guys, have a good one. Adios. All right, guys, there always seems to be one final word. Today, looking back at my own video, I mean, that's where I learned a lot of things, that looking back at what I did, and then I see my own mistakes, because sometimes you go, as you're recording and as you're actually doing this on the car, you're not thinking in the same way. But I look back on it, and one of the parts where I was wondering where a math channel would be handy, it seems like when this was on channel 3 and 4, this would have been the throttle position sensor. We could see these 2 oppose each other. When we had it on 1 and 2, these follow each other at a different voltage. That voltage should never vary. On these 2, we're adding these 2 channels together. When this one goes negative, the yellow trace goes positive. But look at their added total. It's a perfect straight line. So if you had a math channel on these 2 channels and one of these was out of whack, you would see a hump in the math channel, I believe. So that's one possibility, just looking back and, you know, trying to find usefulness for the math channel. There's a million uses for it, but, you know, exploring, seeing a place where you could have used it, I mean, that's something to keep in the back of my head now. All right, guys, I promise you that's it. Have a good one.